Meg watched the lightning hit a nearby olive tree and sighed. She had gone from one end of the city to the other and back again to Darius's agora after hitching a ride on a wagon, convincing the driver Tassos it was in his best interest to take her. There would be no one to hire him if Thebes got smote. The wind was whipping up, sending things flying, what she wouldn't give to hang up her sandals and head home herself. Her dress was soaked, and she was no closer to figuring out where Darius's Athena statue was, let alone a whole city of them. On the ride over, Tassos had mentioned 3 other missing statues, 2 in front of theaters and 1 in front of another temple. Once Darius heard this, he'd fired Meg, if Athena didn't turn up again and unleash her wrath first. Meg looked up once again, getting the feeling she was being watched. No one was there. If it was the god of war and wisdom, she would have made herself known. Athena was anything but subtle. Meg absently waved to Tassos as he drove the carriage away, just as Darius stormed out of his market. "Well, anything?" he demanded. "The good news is, Athena isn't only angry with you, she's mad at half the city," Meg said, pushing her wet hair out of her eyes. "There are Athena statues missing all over the place. And that news helps me how? I hired you to find our statue, Megara, not learn what's going on elsewhere." He shook his head. "I should have called on Hercules. They say he's a god now. He would have found it." Meg's cheeks burned, but she held her tongue. "Find the statue, collect your pay." But Darius wasn't finished. "Some investigator you are. I told Otis you wouldn't be able to help us." "Otis?" Meg stopped glowering and narrowed her eyes at him. "Why are you talking to your competitor's son?" Darius reddened. "It's none of your business." "Huh." Darius had specifically asked Meg to look into Kostos, not his son. Why would Darius get chummy with the competition? Meg pushed the thought aside. "I was actually looking for Otis myself. He might have been around when one of the other statues was stolen. Do you know where he is?" Darius paused, then pointed in the direction of the first stall, where a young man with short brown hair was talking to a vendor. "Otis!" Meg called to him, running over. "I was just at your agora. I'm told you were the last person to see the Athena statue at your market. I didn't take it, if that's what you're getting at," he said gruffly. "It would take 10 men to lift that thing." "I know that," Meg said, though she thought he seemed quick to defend himself. "What I wanted to know was when you last remembered looking at the statue, before it was gone. When did you last pray to it?" Otis paused for a moment. "Right before I told everyone to go home for the night. I said my nightly thanks to Athena for protecting us in our city, and then I turned to the stalls to tell them to pack up. As I did, I heard a loud pop, almost like a clap of thunder, but not quite as booming as this," he said, motioning to the stormy weather. "Then the statue disappeared. It seemed like a trick." A pup and a trick. Meg's mind was racing. She ran through all the facts. Multiple, immovable protection statues had magically disappeared in the past 2 days. Olive pits had been left in their place, at least in the spots she had visited, which was more than a little strange. And while the 2 agora owners, Darius and Kostos, were not on great terms, they'd both had statues stolen. It didn't seem like they'd steal from each other, though oddly enough, Darius and Kostos' son, Otis, were friendly with each other. Meg shook her head to clear it. Something wasn't sitting right about the timing. It seemed kind of ironic that a bunch of Athena statues went missing on Wonder Boy's first day on the job, a day when many gods would be helping him. And then she had it, a hunch. The more she thought about it, the more a certain someone came to mind. Someone with the means and motive to get the job done. Of course, an accusation of this magnitude would be risky. She'd have one chance to get it right. If she was wrong, Athena would not look on her fondly, and her reputation for this line of work would most likely be tarnished. She had to be sure, and the only way to do that was to talk to the suspect directly. But how? Wonder Boy. The thought of him at her side calmed her. He'd believe her reasoning without concrete proof. Maybe even talk out her theory with her. Meg sighed. Calling on Hercules was the easy way out. She couldn't always rely on her god of a boyfriend to help solve her problems. And besides, it was his first day on the job. By the looks of this weather, he probably had his hands full with any heroes caught in the storm. She would have to handle this on her own. Wonder Boy, she thought, touching the pin on her chest. What would you do? Another crack of thunder sounded. A toddler in a nearby stall began to cry. Mama! He called out, racing into a nearby woman's arms. That's when Meg had an idea, and it involved her boyfriend's mother.